The topic of this video is how do we find economic growth rates?
And the math behind the economics is finding rates of change.
So recall that economic growth is usually measured as a change in real GDP or a change in real GDP per capita. And here are some real GDP data shown in the graph. So suppose we know that real GDP was $15 trillion in 2011 and it was $15.5 trillion in 2012. What was the growth rate of real GDP between 2011 and 2012?
In order to answer questions such as these, we need to know how to find the rate of change. So what are we going to do? We want to measure the rate of change of some economic quantity from one year to the next, or maybe from one decade to the next, or from maybe high-speed trading from 1 millisecond to the next. What do? We need the following information. We need a starting value for our quantity, which we denote by V1. We need an ending value for our quantity, which we denote by V2. And we need the time period from start to end of our measurement. Once we have that information, we carry out the following steps. We calculate the change in the value, so that would be V2 minus V1. And then we calculate the change in the value divided by the starting value, because we're interested in the rate of change relative to the starting value. We then rewrite that as a percentage and write our answer in a complete sentence. So let's do an example. Let's find the rate of change given the following information. The cost of an airline ticket on Mondays is $415. That's going to be our V1, our first value. And the cost of the same ticket on Friday is $435. That will be V2, our second value. What is the rate of change of price from Monday to Friday? So let's do this step by step. We know that step 1 is to find the change in the values. So that's going to be V2 minus V1. That's $435 minus $415. That's the change, and that gives me $20. I put an equal sign here when I really wanted a minus sign. Sorry about that. Fix that. V2 minus V1. Step 2 was to take the value that we had there, 20, and divide it by V1. V1 is 415, so I have 20 divided by 415. I can pull out my calculator and find out that that is 0.04819 and so on. Then step 3 is to rewrite that as a percentage. I'd multiply by 100 and I'd get 4.8%. And then the final step is to write that as a complete sentence. And the sentence would say the rate of change of price is 4.8% between Monday and Friday. Or we could use the expression growth rate. The growth rate in the price for the airline ticket between Monday and Friday is 4.8%.
Okay, let's use this information to answer the question posed earlier about the growth rate of real GDP. So we knew that real GDP was 15 trillion in 2011 and 15.5 trillion in 2012, and we wanted to find the growth rate. So the change in GDP then was 15.5 minus 15. The change was 0.5 trillion. Taking the original value was 15 trillion, so the change divided by the original 0.5 divided by 15 is 0.0333. If we multiply by 100 to convert the decimal to a percentage, we have 3.33%, and then we know that the growth rate of real GDP was 3.33% between 2011 and 2012. Okay, what are some other times when we use rates of change and growth rates in economics and percentages? Unemployment rates, inflation rates, and price elasticity of demand.
Now we've seen how to use the math behind the economics to measure economic growth rates. Thank you so much for listening.